It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of September 7th, 2001. Or, as many of us would like to probably consider it, the last weekend before the world eventually changed forever, but we'll eventually get to that at the end of the episode and talk about what had happened the week to come after that. But let's talk about the movies that we have on here, because we have 4 movies to look at here. And we're starting off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is the newest version of the Three Musketeers, that is The Musketeer. So this is actually another retelling of the classic Alexander Dumas story, The Three Musketeers, but this is done very differently, as you'll see here. In 17th century Paris, you have this dashing swordsman named D'Artagnan, played by Justin Chambers, who would later go on to star in Grey's Anatomy, who finds himself at odds with the powerful forces taking over France. He sets out to avenge the murder of his parents and finds his country cleaved by chaos and civil unrest. His heart softens only for Francesca, played by Mina Suvari, who's a fiery peasant girl who claims D'Artagnan's heart on sight. The big selling point of this particular movie, as you saw from the trailer there, was that this was actually using stunt work done by Xing Zhang, who is a prolific stunt choreographer and performer. He's done a lot of stuff with Jet Li's movies, and so they were selling this movie specifically on this. It was also recognized by the Department of Gurs as the first Musketeers adaptation to incorporate authentic scenery from the real D'Artagnan's home region. And that's all well and good and all, but if the movie is not good, then it's not really worth it when it's all said and done. And unfortunately, this movie really is not that good of a movie. It feels like a film that is just really, I don't know, like, on the one hand, it's trying to do something new and different with it, and at least with the Three Musketeers, there is at least some versions of the story that are actually much better than the others. Like, I would gladly take this over something like the one that Paul W.S. Anderson did, where, of course, he has to put his wife in there, because apparently that's the only way he can make movies, and even then, they're not great movies to begin with. But I'm trying to think of what the best Three Musketeers adaptation is, the more I think about it. And I know there was two comedies that were made with the producers of Superman behind them, but the ones that really stick out to me specifically are, of all things, the Mickey Mouse and the Mickey Mouse one that came out about a couple years after this, and then the Tom and Jerry ones with the two Musketeers, Jerry and Tuffy, I think it is. Like, it's the little kid that he always had with him, like Nibbles. Why do I think his name was Tuffy? I think it was named Tuffy at one point, but I think it's just Nibbles. But those are the ones I always remember as the bit more superior ones compared to some of the other adaptations. But like I said, I've never seen the Salkind one. Apparently, it was successful enough to launch another film after that, so I guess they were onto something there. But as far as this goes, it tries to do some things differently. It's kind of very unique in its own way, but it doesn't have enough there to really get you invested in what's going on here. And the stunt work overall, it's fine, I guess, but it doesn't really amount to anything when it's all said and done. Like, it feels like Universal was trying to do their own version of something like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like, it was because that became the unexpected success the year before, and all the studios had to say, well, we got to get in on this. And unfortunately, the film doesn't really do a good job of handling that. And I don't know, it just didn't work for me. It just felt like a film that was just kind of like, we try to do something different, we're trying to do a different retelling of the story, but it comes off too similarly to some of the other versions we've had up to this point, like The Man in the Iron Mask in '98 with Leonardo DiCaprio, or even the Disney one from about 10 years prior to this. But I guess I can't really say it's a bad movie. It's just one that doesn't really have the right execution and what it wanted to do when it was all said and done. It just felt like kind of a missed opportunity on so many different levels. But I mean, give him points for trying, at least. I mean, like I said, I'd gladly take this over that terrible one that Mila Jovovich was in. But I digress. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is the romantic comedy Two Can Play That Game. And I feel like an idiot right now because I keep thinking that Vanessa Williams is the main female actress in this movie, but no, Vanessa Williams and Vivica A. Fox clearly do not look the same, and I should have figured that out beforehand, but I don't know, for some reason I always thought that was Vanessa Williams there. I don't know why I thought it was. I don't know why I thought that, but I apologize for that. So if anybody gets offended by that, I'm sorry I didn't get to notice that before now, but now I have a chance to redeem myself by at least talking about her in this movie, because the plot of this movie is that you have her playing Shantae Smith. Vivica A. Fox plays this woman who's so adept at navigating the waters of romancing that her best girlfriends depend on her for advice whenever man trouble clouds the horizon. But when her boyfriend Keith, played by Morris Chestnut, is caught red-handed stepping out with a coworker, she institutes her 10-day plan to get her man in line. Whether it's sexy lingerie or good home cooking, she has an arsenal of weapons destined to bring a man to his knees and back to her. She's not above playing the damsel in distress by using the ever-reliable local grapevine to get his attention. It's all good because getting her man back by any means necessary is all that matters. Unfortunately, the happy ending that she expects goes sideways when he begins following the advice of his buddy, who brings a player's perspective to the game's girls play. In this comedic battle of the sexes, Shantae's about to discover that not only are there rules, she's not the only one playing. With her relationship at stake and her friends checking her every move, Shantae has to think fast and stay a step ahead of Keith if she has any hope of bringing her man back with her pride intact. So in a way, it's kind of a little reminiscent to something like a little bit of kind of a role reversal to, kind of reminds me of Boomerang a little bit, but at the same time also kind of a mix of The Sweetest Thing, which is a movie that it's a romantic comedy, but it's one of those romantic comedies where it's a little more mean-spirited than it actually lets on. I mean, that movie really is trying to go for more. It feels like it's a chick flick, but it's trying to go more for a wide appeal by bringing in more guy-related humor. And I feel like this movie's trying to be that way, except not as raunchy or as insane as that movie gets. And in some ways, it kind of hurts the movie in the long run, because there are aspects of this movie where things about it do work, but then other times it's just kind of like, what's the real end result of this whole thing? Like, what's the whole point of this? Like, what's supposed to come from me saying anything about this movie in particular if you're just going for an entirely mean-spirited angle to it? So really, I'm kind of mixed on how I feel about this movie, because I get what it's trying to do, but I think it's trying a little too hard to be a film that's trying to appeal not just to the ladies, but also to the guys as well. And I don't know if it's really doing a good job at it, quite honestly. I don't feel like it's really doing everything that it can to really do something that could stand out in both aspects of it all. But I will say this, the casting overall is very good in the film. Vivica A. Fox, Morris Chestnut, Anthony Anderson, Gabrielle Union, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Tamala Jones, Monique. I mean, there's a really strong cast in this movie, and they do carry the load here, where you do get some investment into it, even if you don't believe into what they're trying to accomplish here. Nor do you feel like it's actually going to pay off in the end. And of course, it's going to pay off at the end. It's going to have that similar storyline that we're all expecting. They're going to get together at the end, and they're going to learn something about each other. And even when they do it in here, it never really feels like it's really earned. That's kind of the thing that's really holding me back from saying it's something that I could recommend. I'm kind of on the fence about it, honestly, because I don't really know what exactly it was trying to really accomplish when it was all said and done. Nor do I feel like it's not a complete waste of time either. I think the effort is being put into it, and these people seem to really like playing these characters because they played them again in other things. Like, they had a stage play adaptation where a lot of the same cast members came back for this one, including Vivica A. Fox, and there was also a sequel where she came back for that one that went direct to DVD. So it has a following to it, and these people really do like playing these characters. So I don't know. I mean, to me personally, I just thought it was kind of a mixed bag. I can't really say if it's any good. I can't really say it's good, but I can't really say it's bad either. I just think it's really misguided in a lot of ways too. That's probably my biggest gripe of the movie, is that it's definitely misguided. It doesn't really have a good idea of who it's trying to aim itself towards. It's trying to be all appeal to everybody, but doesn't really do it when it's all said and done. So I don't know. Kind of a mixed opinion on this one for me personally, but that's just my personal take on it. But that's how two can play that game. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston in Rockstar. Speaking of movies that clearly had no idea what direction they wanted to go with, Rockstar, this movie with Mark Wahlberg, Jennifer Aniston. I remember the time this came out. This was supposed to be one of those movies that was heavily hyped. Of course, you have Jennifer Aniston, who was on the most popular show at the time, Friends. Mark Wahlberg was a rising star as an actor. Of course, he started his career as a musician and a model. But you have the story here of him playing Chris Izzy Cole, a tribute band singer who ascends to the position of lead vocalist in his favorite band. And supposedly this was supposed to be a role for Brad Pitt, who, of course, would later be dating Jennifer Aniston. In fact, I don't know, were they dating around this time period? Let me see. Yeah, they were married at this point. So yeah, they were. So I guess it kind of makes sense why they wanted to get him in there. But eventually he left because of creative differences, and that's when Mark Wahlberg came in. And Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston have proven over time that they are really good actors. But kind of like with Two Can Play That Game, it doesn't really have a good idea of what direction it really wants to go. I mean, Some people say it's trying to be more like Spinal Tap. The more I look at the trailers for this, I get a sense of maybe like the jazz singer, the Neil Diamond jazz singer one, the one that came out in the 1980s. But even then, that one wasn't all that great. And this one, I can't really decide whether or not it's actually good or not. It just feels like a film that really has a real hard time figuring out what the overall purpose of its existence is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be a serious movie? Is it supposed to be like a satirical comedy? What is it really trying to accomplish here? And the stuff they try to accomplish here, you've seen this stuff before, you know. You gotta have, it's a lot of cliches, like, of course, this guy's gonna lose his cool, he's gonna go have a mental breakdown, and then have his big comeback when it's all said and done. It's in this movie, and it just really does not work when it's all said and done. It's a movie that just feels like, okay, what was the overall purpose of this? Why was I even here? Like, it's like, what reason do I have to be to go into this movie? And I just really couldn't find anything about it that made it that interesting, honestly. Just kind of like, okay, it's there. What's its purpose? Like, what am I supposed to be taking from this? But unlike Two Can Play That Game, where I did find aspects to it that I thought were okay, Rockstar I can't really say that much about. To say that I should recommend it, or even say it's a mixed bag of a movie. But it's not really. It's more bad stuff than good stuff. Honestly, the more I think about it, it's just largely forgettable, man. It's a movie that just really, I think they had higher aspirations for, considering who they had on board, the hype that was built up around the time, but it just didn't live up to it when it was all said and done. So, Rockstar, let's go ahead and take a look at our last movie here, and that is the horror film Soul Survivors. Well, this one doesn't really need a whole lot of explanation because, let's be honest, you pretty much know how this is going to end. You have Melissa Sage Miller as this college student whose boyfriend, played by Casey Affleck, dies in a car accident that results from her driving after a night of partying. The accident leaves Cassie racked with guilt and emotionally vulnerable to the point that she begins having hallucinations and strange visions and waking dreams, even though Cassie's friends, and as well as local priest, Father Jude, all attempt to assist helping her and coping with her loss. So it's not really a horror thriller when you really think about it. It's more of a psychological thriller, and it'd be interesting if the characters were interesting, or the storyline was very interesting, or anything about this movie was very interesting, but sadly, no. This is one of those movies that I think just got past everything because they had a hot young cast at the time. You got Eliza Dushku from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You got Casey Affleck, who's in the American Pie movies. You got Melissa Sage Miller, who's been in a couple of other things. Angela Featherstone has been in a number of different things. Luke Wilson is the priest in here. But other than that, though, there's really nothing about this movie that holds up or has any value to it. Like, it's just a film that's there for date night, so people can go see an opening weekend, take the dates to it, and then never ever see this movie again afterwards, because nobody remembers this movie after this point. Even though it came from the same people that did I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend, they were trying to create the next big success, and they did not have it whatsoever. And you could pretty much see why if you saw the trailer for this right from the get-go. That thing was telling you right away, avoid like the plague. And that's what I'm telling you about this movie. Avoid it like the plague, because it ain't scary, it ain't interesting, it ain't anything. That's all I got to say about that one. Soul Survivors. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, we'll take you to 3 days after one of probably the most important event in recent American history happened. And how did the box office fare up when 2 new movies opened up? One with Keanu Reeves, Hardball, and the other was a horror thriller, The Glass House. We'll kind of talk about how the box office was affected by the September 11th attacks and other things about that particular week as well. We'll delve into all that next time around. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.